Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the real ancient Korea. Not the drama version with elegant handbook, palace whispers and romantic moonlit walks. We're talking about the real thing. A world of strict rules, harsh punishments, endless labour, and a society that told you exactly who you were and never let you forget it. You might think you could handle life back then, but trust me, Confucian order didn't care how clever or kind you were. If you were born low, you stayed low. And even breathing out of turn could cost you. If you're enjoying these quiet little windows into history, I'd really appreciate a like, or a subscribe if you're feeling generous. It helps more than you know. And I'm always curious, where are you watching or listening from? Drop your city and time in the comments. It's always wild to see this little quiet corner of the internet reaching across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum, and let's step into the past together. We're about to explore why you might not survive even a single day in the real ancient Korea. You wake before dawn. Only the faintest glow pushes through the paper window. No bell. No rooster, just your breath in the cold. This is life in a small commoner's house in ancient Korea. Not the royal court, not a noble estate, just dirt floors, paper doors, and the sound of someone already starting the fire. You're probably a sangmin, a member of the commoner class. About 80% of the population. You farm, you pay taxes, you do public labour, and if called, you go to war. Your life is service. Your name is ink on a record. You stretch. Your joints ache. There is no mattress, no blanket thick enough, just straw and your own body heat. The year is unclear, but the expectations are not. By 5 a.m. you've tied your belt, straightened your hanbok, basic faded cotton. Colour is a luxury. You're not allowed it anyway. Your hair is tied up, but you wear no gat. Those wide-brimmed hats are for aristocrats. You are not one. You open the door, step outside, it's cold and still. The only sound is a soft rake across dirt. Someone is already sweeping the yard. Confucianism controls your life. It's not just a philosophy, it's the law. Hierarchy, obedience, filial piety, everything has its place. At the top the young ban, the elite scholars and officials. They write the rules. Below them the youngin, technicians, scribes, interpreters. Then you, a sangmin, farmer, a craftsman, worker, quiet. Beneath you are the kyonmin, the lowest of the low. But that doesn't make you high. It just means someone else suffers more. You walk to the fields, they aren't far. No one owns their own land here. Even land is part of the system. You've been assigned a rice plot. Today's task, planting. You kneel in the cold mud. The water seeps into your sleeves. You grab seedlings, push them into the muck. Row after row, over and over, you don't look up. You don't speak. Speaking slows you down. And everything is measured. A local official passes by, riding a horse, wearing silk. Probably hasn't touched a field in his life. You bow your head, lower your eyes, wait until he's gone. He doesn't acknowledge you. That's normal. Your back is already aching. It's only mid-morning. The village headman comes around with a scroll. He checks the rows, nods, moves on. You won't know what he writes until the end of the season. If your work isn't good enough, your tax rate goes up. Yes, even for rice you didn't get to keep. Around noon you eat a cold barley bowl, a little radish, no meat, no fish. You squat in the shade. Eat fast, 40 minutes, maybe less. Then back to work. You finish by late afternoon. But not really. You're behind on your quota. Someone else didn't show up today. You take their place. It's better than being punished, you've seen that. Once a man refused to dig an irrigation ditch. Said his hands were bleeding. He got 10 lashes. Now he keeps digging. With gloves. By sunset your hands are raw. Your knees are stiff. Your vision blurs a little. But the work is done. For now. You walk home, not quickly. Every step feels like weight. You pass the same houses, the same neighbours. No one smiles, no one waves, everyone is tired. Dinner is simple. Boiled millet. Some soup with leaves. Your mother counts grain for tomorrow. Your sister mends your shirt. Your father sits quietly, staring at the wall. It's always like this. After eating, you perform the ancestral rites. Jessa. Burn incense. Bow 3 times. Place offerings. Recite names from the family line. You don't ask why. It's tradition. It's law. It's expected. You lie down. The room is dark. The oil lamp flickers out. The straw mat is damp. You shift and adjust. Try to find warmth. You think about today. You didn't speak more than 10 words. You bent over for 9 hours. You saw the sky twice. This is life in ancient Korea. It doesn't care how clever you are, or kind, or tired, or sick. You work and you obey. You bow. And tomorrow, you do it again. You're up again before the sun. No one tells you to move. No one needs to. Your body already knows. It's muscle memory now. The ache in your back, the cold in your joints, the sound of your mother coughing across the room. You sit up, brush bits of straw from your sleeve. The fire's out. You rebuild it with thin sticks. No one says good morning. There is no greeting ritual, only tasks. This is ancient Korea, and work never ends. You clean the pit, wash your face with water that bites your skin, boil rice, pound grain, tie up your robe, adjust your belt. You don't speak. Speaking slows the body. Today is a field day, or it might be a roof patch day. You won't know until the headman makes the rounds. Someone calls from the path. It's your uncle. He's carrying a hoe. He doesn't stop, just nods. You nod back. That's your conversation for the morning. You were born into labour. Your father was too, and his father. Even if you worked yourself to the bone, you'd still be a sangmin, a commoner, below the aristocrats, below the scholars, below the written laws, but still above someone, and somehow that keeps everyone quiet. The task today is moving timber. Someone in the village is repairing a storage shed. That means every able body helps. You walk to the tree line. There are cut logs stacked in a pile, thick, rough, wet from last night's frost. You pick one, lift, walk. The pile is a few li away, about half a mile. You repeat this. Back and forth, there is no break. You don't get to say you're tired. Fatigue is not a condition here, it's the default. By mid-morning, a cart arrives. It's pushed by another labourer. You help him lower a beam. Your hands slip. A splinter tears your palm. You don't scream. You wipe it on your sleeve. There is no medicine, only water and cloth. You wrap your hand and keep working. Lunch is rice gruel and 2 slices of radish. If you eat too fast, your stomach cramps. If you eat too slow, you get left behind. You crouch in the shade and your knees ache. You chew without tasting anything. Someone nearby burps. No one laughs. In ancient Korea, work was governed by the Confucian ideal of duty. And for you, duty is labour. It doesn't matter if you're hungry or you're sick or mourning. The system does not bend. You do. The logs are in place by afternoon. The beams still need to be joined. You've never studied joinery. but you're expected to help. A village carpenter gives orders. You nod, pick up a hammer, hold a beam, balance it while someone else drives the peg. Your fingers tremble. You don't mention it. You keep going. The carpenter is short on nails. He sends you and another boy to fetch more. You walk to the blacksmith's shed. It's 3 fields away. The boy doesn't speak. You don't either. When you get there, the blacksmith tells you he has no nails, not unless someone delivers more iron. So now you're tasked with finding iron. You walk to the headman. He listens, sighs, tells you the magistrate's delivery is late, so the shed remains half built. The logs wait, the workers stop, and you're blamed. Not out loud, but the looks say it all. By now the sun is low. You think you're done. You're not. You're reassigned to ditch cleaning. The village's water line needs clearing before it floods the lower paddies. You carry a rusted shovel. Drag it across the slope. Mud clings to your robe. Your arms burn. The ditch smells of mould. A rat scurries past. You don't flinch. Back pain is normal. So is hunger and silence. Your body wants to stop. You tell it number. Someone calls for more hands at the mill. You offer, not out of goodwill, out of calculation. The headman sees effort. Effort becomes rations. Maybe. At the mill you turn the grindstone in 2 hours. Slow circle and stone over grain. Your palms throb, your arms cramp. You want to scream. You don't. You lower your head, keep turning. By now the sky is dark and the moon is up. You walk home in silence. Your legs are weak, your feet blistered, but you don't limp. Dinner is thin soup and silence. Your mother asks nothing. She's too tired. Your sister stares at the table and your father is already asleep, his fingers still black from soot. You eat quickly. After the meal, you help refill the firewood stack. You walk outside with a bucket. The cold cuts through your robe. You chop 2 logs. The axe is dull. It takes longer than it should. You finish, stack the pieces, and close the door. You think you're done, but you're not. Someone knocks. It's a runner from the village guard. They need help patrolling the road. Just an hour, maybe more. You nod. You grab a lantern, tie your robe tighter, follow him down the path. You pass trees, hear the rustle of wind, the faint howl of a dog. You're tired, but you keep walking. Work in ancient Korea is not a job. It's your identity, your obligation, your fate. It begins with your breath and ends when your body no longer moves. There is no pension, no rest day, no future dream, only repetition. You finish the patrol, return home. The fire is out, everyone is asleep. You lie down, feel your body creak, stare at the ceiling, and it's leaking again. You close your eyes and you will dream of carrying things, of tying ropes, of bending, of lifting. In your dreams you work. Tomorrow you do it again. Because in ancient Korea, work never ends. You want to speak, but you don't. Because in ancient Korea, speaking up doesn't get you heard. It gets you noticed. And that's dangerous. You're a commoner, a sangmin. Your voice doesn't matter. You were born into a system that already decided what you're worth, what you can do, where you live, what you wear, what you owe. There is no voting, no debate, no choice, only obligation, only silence. You have thoughts, opinions, questions, but none of them can be said aloud, because power doesn't listen to you. Power records your labour, counts your family members, takes your grain, and tells you it's fair. If you question that, you're labelled difficult, disrespectful, disruptive, or worse, unfilial. Being unfilial in ancient Korea is one of the worst things you can be. Worse than theft, worse than lying, worse than laziness. If a son speaks out against his father, or a daughter talks back to her mother, it's not just shameful, it's criminal. The law punishes you, the village ostracizes you, your own family may disown you. There is no concept of the individual voice. There is only the voice of the family, the household, the system, and if your thoughts don't align with that, they're dangerous. You once saw a man argue with a tax collector. He said his numbers were wrong, that his grain was short from drought, that his plot had flooded twice. The tax man didn't listen. He didn't have to. Instead, he wrote the man's name down and sent it to the magistrate. 3 days later, the man's roof was seized, his family forced to sleep under straw mats. His brother was assigned extra labour, all for speaking out, all for asking a question. You learned your lesson. Keep your head low, keep your voice lower. Even your personal feelings are not yours to express. If your father dies, you must mourn exactly 3 years. You wear unbleached hemp, no meat, no alcohol, no music, even if you weren't close, even if you're too poor to afford it. If you don't mourn properly, you're labelled heartless. The entire village marks your shame. Even grief must follow the rule. Your sister is smarter than you, but she will never be heard. Because she's a girl, she has ideas, she reads at night. Sometimes you see her mouth words from the Confucian texts she wasn't supposed to memorize. But if anyone finds out, she will be punished for overstepping. Her job is to serve, to stay silent, to marry who she's told, to never return. In ancient Korea, women are trained in silence from birth. They bow deeper, speak softer, and by the time they're grown, they barely speak at all. Your mother tells you things at night, after the fire's out, after the house is quiet. She whispers her thoughts, what she regrets, who she misses, what she would have done differently if she were allowed to do anything differently. You listen, but you don't answer, because if anyone hears she's in trouble, you're in trouble. Even poetry has limits. You've heard of scholars who wrote verses questioning the world. They disappeared, or were reassigned, or re-educated. Confucianism, they say, is harmony, but it's harmony on someone else's terms. One time a travelling monk came through the village. He spoke of inner freedom, of detaching from the world. People listened. The magistrate didn't like that. The monk left that night. No one knows where he went, or if he made it. There are walls built out of silence. You learn to live inside them. You speak only when required. You repeat only what is allowed. You ask no questions. There's a man in your village who used to teach, was once a clerk, maybe even a minor official. Then he said something during a memorial, a passing comment. Now he's just a field worker. He doesn't say much anymore. His eyes look far away. You've learned that survival depends on invisibility. If they can't hear you, they can't target you. If you don't speak, you can't be misquoted. If you keep moving, no one stops you. At the village meetings, you bow, you nod. You say yes, sir, when asked, even when you disagree. Even when you know they're wrong, even when it hurts your family. Because there's a word that follows every contradiction: disobedient. And disobedience invites punishment. Sometimes it's labour, sometimes it's exile, sometimes it's worse. You dream of saying something real, standing up, telling the headman the field quotas are unreasonable, saying the grain tax is too high, admitting that your family's starving. But when you open your mouth, nothing comes out. Your breath fails you, your jaw clenches, and the moment passes. You walk back home that night. The sky is dark. Your shadow flickers behind you. You feel full of things you'll never say. And that's the quiet part no one sees. Not the pain of working, not the ache of hunger, but the silence. The constant, heavy silence of never being allowed to speak. Your voice doesn't die. It's just buried under rules and fear and duty. And when it finally surfaces again, maybe it's not even yours anymore. In ancient Korea, you don't just lose your voice. You never had one to begin with. You didn't choose your name. You didn't choose your home. You didn't choose your class, your rank, or your robe. Everything you are in ancient Korea was chosen for you. Before you could speak, before you could walk, before you were even born. You belong to a world of labels. They are written in ledgers, carved into family trees, baked into your accent, sewn into the fabric you wear, and none of them are yours to change. When you're born, the village records it. Your name, your gender, your family's class, your birth order, your assigned role, and that role will follow you until the day you die. And even after that, your sons will carry it for you. If you're lucky enough to have sons, you are a sangmin. That means you are a commoner, technically free, but only in name. You can't own certain land, you can't wear certain colours. You can't apply for civil exams. You can't change jobs without permission. You can't marry outside your class. And you cannot rise. No matter how smart you are, no matter how strong, no matter how useful, you were born into a box and you stay there. Above you are the Yangban, the ruling class, scholars and officials, landowners. They hold the books. They decide what counts. They say what is moral. They speak for the heavens. Their sons are groomed in calligraphy by age 4. They recite Confucian texts before they can read. They are tested in courtyards and praised in halls. Their mistakes are forgiven. Yours are punished. Below you are the cheonmin, the despised class. But don't get comfortable. Being above them doesn't mean freedom. It just means someone else suffers more. You can still be punished like one. Still be loaned out like one. Still be beaten, taxed, silenced. And you have no power to stop it. Your box isn't just legal. It's social, spiritual, cultural. It's everything. Even the clothes are assigned. Your handbook is undyed cotton. No ornaments, no embroidery. Just straight lines and dull thread. If you wear silk, it's illegal. Even fake silk might get you questioned. Your shoes are straw. Your hat, if you're allowed one, is reed. You feel it every step you take. Even your skin knows its rank. Your speech is boxed too. You speak differently to those above you. Your tone lowers. Your words soften. You add titles to everything. Yes, sir. By your grace, I am honoured to serve. When you talk to someone of equal class, less formal, but still careful, and when you talk to someone lower, you mimic those above you, because power trickles down, and so does cruelty. The box follows you to school, if you're allowed schooling at all. For Sangmin boys, a few temple schools might offer basics, reading, writing, a little Confucian thought. But there are no books to take home, no teachers who care, no promise of exams. The Guaju, the state civil exam, is for Yangban. They say it's open to anyone, but no commoner has ever passed it in your district, or the one next to it, or the one beyond that. So you don't study to escape. You study to obey, to read enough to tally grain, to copy family records, to say the right at the right time. You study not to be free, but to avoid punishment. The box governs marriage too. You can't marry into a Yangban family. even if you fall in love, even if she loves you back, even if your souls are tied across lifetimes? The answer is no. Her father won't allow it. Her neighbours would gossip. Your children wouldn't be legitimate. Your love is irrelevant. The box decides. Even your friends are boxed. You may only associate with your class, talk too much with a monk, and people wonder if you're hiding something, laugh too long with a young man, and people think you're trying to climb, associate with Hyunmin, and your status might be downgraded by rumour alone. In the records your name is written once, next to it, your job, your household count, your expected rice yield, your assigned taxes, is permanent ink, no edits. If a war breaks out, you are conscripted, not the officials, not the scholars, not the landowners. You bleed, you carry the spear, you repair the road they march on, and when the war ends, you get nothing. Sometimes you imagine what life would be like, outside the box. You see the priest with quiet eyes, the merchant with strange coins, the soldier who smiles like he's seen too much to fear. You wonder what it's like to choose, to roam, to say no, to say yes. Then you remember. Those people have boxes too, just different shapes, and sometimes even tighter. You can't just leave. Villages attract. Travel requires permission, documents, stamps, a reason. If you disappear, your family is fined, questioned, marked. So you stay. In your house, in your robe, and in your role. If you're a woman, the box is smaller. Your life is marriage, birth, service, silence. Your opinions are invisible and your labour is uncounted. Your name, left out of the records, unless it's for a dowry or a punishment. You are passed from father to husband, from husband to sons, and when they die to no one. You don't inherit land, you don't keep custody, you don't decide, you obey. And smile. Sometimes a few people do rise, a military hero, a merchant with clever roots, a bureaucrat's favourite assistant. They make it into history books. But you? You're not in the books, you're in the margins, if you're lucky. Your grandfather tried to leave once, went to the capital, tried to register as a scribe. Had calligraphy skills, they said. Clean lines, strong balance, they let him test. He passed. But someone checked the family registry. A Sangmin with a Cheonmin great-grandmother. Disqualified. He came home with less than he left with. He didn't try again. Every now and then you wonder, if I were born elsewhere, would I be different? If I were a Yangban, would I speak louder? If I were a Cheonmin, would I speak at all? But those are useless thoughts. Thoughts like that lead to dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction is the first step to trouble. So you kneel, and bow, and nod. You stay inside the lines. You memorize your place. You teach it to your children. And one day, you will be buried, in a box of course, made of wood, covered with dirt, with your name etched on a single stone, and that will be the only time the box opens. In ancient Korea, you don't break the rules, because the rules break you, and they break fast. You might think justice takes time, that there's a trial, that someone listens, not here. In ancient Korea, justice is swift, cold, painful, and public. You stole a turnip, 10 lashes. You talk back to your father, locked in a cage. You missed your tax deadline, stripped, beaten, and your family pays double next month. Punishment is not personal, it's policy. Because punishment is not about justice, it's about order. The system runs on obedience, and fear ensures obedience. The first punishment you ever saw was at age 6. A boy took a sweet cake from the market stall. Maybe he was hungry. Maybe it wasn't even theft. They caught him, tied him to the whipping post. He cried, but they hit him anyway. The headman said it was a light sentence. You remember the sound, the silence afterward, the way no one looked directly at him for weeks. That boy left the village the following year. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe you just stopped seeing him. That's how fast punishment works. Your neighbour, a kind man, once refused to send his daughter to marry a cousin of the local magistrate. Said she deserved better, that she was too young. The next week, the family's fields were reassigned. They're well blocked. The father sent to labour in the mountains. His daughter married anyway, to someone worse. In ancient Korea, law and morality are not always the same, and mercy isn't written anywhere. The laws are Confucian, but the punishments are legalist. Confucianism says you should act with honour. Legalism says if you don't, you get hurt, and the state chooses both. There are over 500 codified punishable acts. Most you've never heard of, some you don't understand. Cutting trees on the wrong day, fine or flogging, not bowing properly in the temple, a reprimand, possibly demotion, accidentally stepping on a government document, 20 lashes, talking during official rites, execution in some places. The most common punishments are beating with a light stick, small crimes, beating with a heavy stick, larger crimes, imprisonment, exile and forced labour, execution. The least common is mercy. You saw a man once get 20 strikes with a heavy rod. His crime, speaking during a ritual. They said he insulted the ancestors. He claimed he sneezed. Didn't matter. They dragged him to the square, stripped his shirt, held him by ropes. The headman didn't blink. The strikes came fast. He fainted after 10. They kept going. Afterward, his family fed him rice water for a week. He couldn't walk for 2. And still, he apologised, bowed to the magistrate, thanked him for teaching him a lesson. That's how punishment works. It breaks the body, then it breaks the soul. Imprisonment isn't like today. There are no long-term prisoners, no rehabilitation. You're locked in a wooden cage, a box you can't sit up in. You eat once a day, if someone remembers. You sleep on your knees, if you sleep at all. You cry, they beat you again. You're not a person, you're a warning. An exile, that's death with more walking. They send you to the far corners, mountain outposts, swamps full of flies, coastal towns where the land doesn't grow. You build things there, bridges, roads and walls, until your bones give out. If you make it back, you're never trusted again. Execution is rare, but it happens, usually in public, to send a message. You don't always get a last word, or a full trial, or even a reason. You're just gone. Most punishment happens before you understand what you did wrong, because the system doesn't explain, it enforces. You learn through pain. A woman in your village was caught cutting a tree during a restricted month. It was for firewood. Her child was sick. There was snow. She pleaded with the official, cried, begged. They gave her 10 strikes, took the wood, marked her house, and now everyone whispers about her. She's the woman who disrespected the calendar, the one who put her own needs above cosmic order. That's what people remember, not the cold, not the child, just the violation. In ancient Korea, your reputation is tied to punishment. Even if you're innocent, the accusation stains you. Forever. If your father is punished, you feel it. You pay higher taxes, you get passed over for tasks, your marriage proposals dry up. The shame attaches to your name, and names matter here. There's a punishment called face shaming. You stand in public with a sign around your neck, describing your offence, your name, your family's name. People spit, whisper, laugh, and your name shrinks after that. Even if you're forgiven, you're not really restored. So people walk carefully, speak slowly, avoid attention. They memorize the rules, repeat the codes, bow a little deeper, move a little quieter. Because even a mistake is no excuse. Sometimes it's not even your fault. The census was miscounted. The grain shipment was delayed. The magistrate misread your handwriting. You still pay the price, because the system doesn't apologize, it just reacts. A young boy once knocked over an ancestral tablet during a cleaning ceremony. He was 7. They made him kneel outside the shrine all night, in winter, without shoes. His family said nothing. His father bowed twice to the priest and asked for further instructions. The priest said, "Let this be a lesson." It was. You never forgot it. Punishment teaches more than law. It teaches obedience, submission, fear. It conditions you. After a while, you stop asking if something is fair. You just ask, will this get me in trouble? And if the answer is yes, you stay silent. You bow. You keep your hands at your sides, because punishment doesn't ask questions. It only gives answers. If you think ancient Korea was hard, you haven't heard what it was like. To be born a woman, let's start simple. You're not born a girl. You're born a future wife, a future mother, a future servant, but never just a person. When you're born, there is no celebration, no drums, no feast, no gift, just disappointment. If your family is poor, you're a burden. If your family is wealthy, you're an asset to be traded later. Either way, you don't belong to yourself. As a child, you stay quiet. Always. You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't interrupt. You don't laugh loudly. You don't ask questions. You watch, you copy, you serve. That's how you're raised. You rise before the men, sweep, cook, boil water, make rice, wash clothes. You learn how to clean without making noise, how to carry water without spilling, how to obey without blinking. Because your value depends on performance. You don't go to school. Not really. You might learn to read simple phrases, enough to write your husband's name, enough to copy Confucian lines about female virtue. But you never learn poetry, or history, or law. Those are for men. There are books written just for you, though. Nehun, Instructions for Women. Samgang Hengsil, Codes of Conduct. They don't tell you how to dream. They tell you how to kneel, how to suffer silently, how to endure your fate with grace. By age 12, your family starts talking about marriage. By 14, it's arranged. By 15 or 16, you're married off. You don't choose the husband. You don't meet him in advance. You don't get a say. Your father decides, based on clan, status, advantage. You're just part of the deal. Marriage is not a celebration. It's a transfer from one house to another, from one man's authority to another. First your father, now your husband. Your wedding robe is heavy. You walk like a stranger through your own life. When you arrive at your husband's home, you kneel, bow 3 times, serve tea, smile, even if you're terrified, even if he's twice your age, or a man you've never seen, or cruel. It doesn't matter. You're his now. Your job is to produce sons, not just children. Sons. Because only sons carry the name. Only sons matter to the ancestors. Only sons count. If you give birth to a daughter, you've failed. They don't say it, but you feel it. In the silence, in the way the mother-in-law looks at you, in the way your husband stops speaking after meals. If you don't conceive, you're replaced, or ignored, or worse. Your husband takes a concubine, you must accept it. It's your fault, always. Even if it's not, especially if it's not, you cannot divorce your husband, but he can divorce you for 7 reasons: disobedience to in-laws, infertility, adultery, jealousy, illness, talkativeness, theft, any of those, and he can send you back with nothing, no land, no children, no dignity. And if your parents are dead, you have nowhere to go. If your husband dies and you don't remarry, you wear mourning clothes for 3 years, sometimes forever. If you marry again, you're seen as weak, unchaste, dishonourable. Your reputation is ruined, so you stay, even if it means living alone in silence, with your husband's family, raising sons who aren't yours, caring for in-laws who blame you for everything. In some cases, you are expected to die with him. There are records of women who took their own lives after their husbands passed. Praise for it. Immortalized in stone. Chaste widow became a badge of honor. They gave awards for dying. Let's talk about daily life. You cook. Prepare food before sunrise, boil water, pick vegetables, clean grain, salt fish, tend the fire. You do laundry by hand, scrubbing fabric in freezing water, drying it over open flame, mending tears, fighting mildew. You care for elders, wipe their faces, feed them, massage their limbs. You raise children, not just your own, but your brothers, your husband's cousins, whoever's needed. You have no privacy, no room of your own, no rest. Your body is not yours, not before marriage, not during, not after. You are expected to obey, please, endure even in pain, even when sick, even after childbirth. There are no hospitals and no midwives, no anesthetics, just cloth, hot water, and look. If something goes wrong, they say it was fate, or karma, or your fault. You don't inherit land, you don't have legal guardianship, you don't hold ancestral rights. You're a vessel, a role, a shadow of a name. You keep your head bowed, because to raise it is to invite judgment, and still, you smile, you hold your child, you teach her how to hold a spoon, how to walk softly, how to avoid being noticed. You sing softly while you cook, you hum while weaving cloth, you whisper stories before bed, even if your hands ache, even if your heart is heavy, even if no one sees you. You are the quiet engine of the household, the backbone of the village, the keeper of rituals, the one who suffers in silence. And history forgets you. No one writes books about you. No statues, no poems, no names carved in stone. Just your labour, and your quietness, and your example for the next girl. In ancient Korea, women were born into boxes smaller than men's, and carried more weight, and received less thanks, and still somehow they endured. You wake before the bell, again. But today the air feels strange, still, heavy, almost expectant. You open the sliding paper door. Outside there's a faint scent of incense drifting from somewhere nearby. The neighbours maybe, or something older. It used to be a holy day, long ago, but no one talks about that anymore. In ancient Korea, religion is not freedom. It's structure, it's regulation, it's obedience. You don't worship to find meaning. You worship to stay safe, to stay orderly, to stay within the system. You've heard that once, long ago, people believed in many things. In mountains with eyes, in rivers with spirits, in ancestors who still listened. They lit fires and danced. They left bowls of rice in the forest and they whispered to trees. That world is mostly gone now. Mostly. The state controls the spirit world, just like it controls the land, and your name, and your time. Religion has been absorbed into government. What was once wild and free is now scheduled and approved. The main religion is ancestor worship. Every house has a shrine, a place for wooden tablets, names carved in careful brushstrokes. Your family performs yes at set times. Offerings of food, cups of drink, low bows. Everyone watches, everyone counts. One mistake, one bowl out of place, one missed gesture, and the whole household is seen as impure. Impurity reflects badly. Impurity invites consequences. You remember last season. Your father's incense stick burned unevenly. The smoke curled the wrong way. The magistrate's assistant noticed. You spent the next week clearing ditches for the village. No one spoke about it, but everyone remembered. There's a strictness to everything, not just in the steps, but in the silence. You don't question the rites. You don't change the chants. You don't ask what it means. You repeat. You follow. You keep the rhythm of the dead, because that's what's required. But the old spirits haven't left, and not really. You see them sometimes, not in visions but in gestures. A bowl left under a tree, a red thread tied around a child's wrist, a woman whispering into her sleeve before crossing a stream. Things that aren't written down, things no one admits to, but they happen, quietly, repeatedly, because deep down people still believe, women especially. They carry the rituals that aren't sanctioned. They sing songs that aren't in books. They remember the forest spirits, the household gods, the dreams. They lead the gut. They beat the drum. They wear white robes that they call the wind. They do this not to defy the state, but to survive it. You've heard a woman sing late at night, a strange melody, low and full of breath. It's not a lullaby. It's older than that. Maybe it's for healing, maybe it's for forgiveness, and maybe it's for something lost. You don't ask, you just listen. These women are not priests, they're not officials, but they are needed. When a child is sick, people don't visit the magistrate. They find the old woman who knows how to talk to spirits. When crops fail, they gather not at the shrine, but in the clearing, with candles and clanging bells. They pray, and sometimes it rains. Of course, the officials frown on this. They post signs against superstition. They warn against vulgar rites. They fine those who attend. But when their own child burns with fever, they send for the same woman. Everyone pretends it's not happening until they need it. That's how it works. You remember once seeing a woman punished. She led a gathering too close to the market, too loud, too seen. They stripped her of her garments, painted ink on her arms, made her bow before the crowd. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. She just stared ahead like she was already elsewhere. You never saw her again. And yet the rituals continued, in quieter places, at darker hours. Nothing ever really stops. It just hides better. You've seen the village's main shrine. It used to be a temple, or maybe a grove. It's hard to tell now. What remains is a tiled roof, a locked door, and a sign that reads, "Rites approved only." What that means changes every season. Sometimes the magistrate sends word, a new ritual to perform. The harvest rite must use white bowls. The ancestral rite must include 7 bows. You comply. You adjust. You say the words without thinking. Because questioning the rites is dangerous. The line between religion and punishment is thin. You don't follow the state's religion. You're marked as undisciplined. You show too much enthusiasm for old rituals. You're labelled impure. You forget to bow. Your name goes in a book. The one they don't talk about. The one with red ink. And yet people endure. Faith becomes private. Software unseen. A folded scrap under the mat. A breath before lighting the stove. A silent hope before sleep. Not a religion. Not anymore. Just memory. Sometimes when the night is very still, you hear drums far away, rhythmic, faint. You tell yourself it's wind, but part of you knows. Someone is dancing, someone is calling, someone is remembering. You asked your sister once, "What do we believe in?" She didn't answer. She just handed you a bowl of rice and whispered, "Hold it steady when you offer it." That was enough. Religion in ancient Korea is not about salvation. It's about behavior. You behave correctly, you are left alone. You behave incorrectly, you are punished. That's the scale. Faith is not for expressing. It's for obeying. You kneel when told. You bow when expected. You recite what's written. Your voice is never part of it. Only your position. Your stillness, your silence. You wonder if the spirits miss being spoken to directly, or maybe they prefer it this way. More quiet, less interruption. Sometimes you dream of a forest with no officials, just trees, drums, a circle of dancers. You wake before the dream ends, but the feeling stays. You rise and you dress, you light the incense, you bow to the tablet. The smoke rises and no one speaks, but everyone watches. This is how you worship. This is how you stay safe. This is how belief survives, and not loudly, not freely, but quietly, reluctantly, endlessly. You've thought about running. Not often. Just enough. But then you remember what happens to people who leave. They're not just punished. They're erased. Your cousin tried it once. Not the kind of cousin you were close to, but close enough to remember his name. Close enough to remember how he looked on the day he disappeared. He was always different. Talked about the capital too much. Said he wanted to see the sea. Laughed a little too loud during chores, like he was somewhere else entirely. One morning he was gone. The rope he tied from his window beam was still swaying in the breeze. He left a pouch of boiled barley cakes in his old shoes. They found him 2 days later, near the river fork. He hadn't even left the county. His hands were tied behind his back with straw rope. His feet had bled through the soles, and they'd lashed him so many times you couldn't tell the welts apart. They brought him back and made him kneel for a whole day in the middle of the village square. His mother didn't come outside. His father stood silently behind him the whole time. No one said a word. The next morning he was gone again, this time to a labour camp. He didn't get a second rope. He didn't get to come back. You never talked to him after that. No one did. People don't leave the village. That's not how life works. You're born here, you work here, you marry here, you die here. That's the pattern. Everyone knows it. No one questions it. You're not supposed to want more. There's a road, of course. You've seen it. Walked part of it when you were younger, when you fetch firewood near the hill where the trees start to lean in. The road winds through the pines, past the gully, disappears into a line of trees that always seem darker than they should be. It's not a forbidden road. No one guards it. No one says you can't go that way. But no one ever does. Because the road isn't empty. It's full of consequences. Everyone is accounted for. That's what the books are for. Each house is listed, every name inked in careful brush strokes. If someone leaves, the name gets circled. If they leave without permission, their family pays. sometimes in grain, sometimes in hours spent digging ditches for the magistrate, sometimes in shame. You've seen the book, not closely, but once when the tax clerk opened it at the wrong angle, the red marks flashed across the page like bruises. Someone's cousin, someone's daughter, gone. There are watchers too, not guards, just men who stand near the well, or the temple, or the road out of town. They're always there, their eyes always following. They don't stop you. They don't raise alarms. They just remember and write things down. You don't even notice them after a while. Until you try something, people do leave. Not on their own terms. They leave in chains, heads down, loaded into carts or marched under watch. Exile isn't rare. It's a tool. A way to remind everyone else that staying in place is safer. You've heard of bandits beyond the hills. Not many, but enough to be useful in stories. They rob wanderers, leave corpses in the mud. You've heard of tigers too. One woman swore she saw stripes in the forest when she gathered mushrooms. Her son didn't return that night. No one asked questions. The story was enough. And if it's not bandits or tigers, it's the weather. The cold that settles in your marrow, the rain that turns the mountain paths to rivers, the hunger that follows you like a second shadow. Escape means facing all that with no help. No tools, no maps, just your hands, your fear, and maybe a satchel of rice if you're lucky. You've thought about Seoul. You've never been there. But sometimes the peddlers talk when they rest their feet by the market stalls. They say there are stone streets, markets that go on for miles, banners in colours so bright your eyes water just from looking at them. They say if you go to the right place at the right time, you can hear the royal musicians play in the palace courtyard, that you can eat rice cakes from a cart, that there are books so thick they need their own shelves. You also hear that if you arrive without papers, the guards throw you into holding. They strip your robes and beat your back until you confess your village, your clan, your reason for walking so far from your place. The capital doesn't want you. It's not made for you. Not someone from a village like this. Even if you found a way out, even if your name wasn't in the book, even if no one noticed the straw mat left unrolled in the corner of your home, you wouldn't make it far. You have no money, no license, no connections. The world outside your village isn't free. It's just more expensive. People try other ways. They drink, they pray harder, they dream louder. Some try to disappear within the walls instead of beyond them. You know one man who talks to himself. Not mad, not really. Just talking to voices that aren't there. Maybe they are. He doesn't walk far. Just enough to pace. Just enough to keep the ghost company. A woman down the path wears a red string around her wrist. For protection, she says. Against illness. Against forgetting. Against herself. Sometimes you think about going to the edge of the village at night, standing at the bend in the road, just to see what it feels like, just to breathe something different. You imagine it might smell like pine, or smoke, or maybe nothing at all. You wonder what would happen if you kept walking, if the sky would shift, if your steps would lighten, if the weight you carry, the one no one sees, would fall behind like a broken sandal. But the thought ends where the forest begins, because you know what happens next. You return, or you don't. And if you don't, if the forest swallows you, or the guards catch you, or the cold slows your blood, then the world forgets you. The village moves on. Your name fades from the stone marker outside your home. Your tablet never gets carved. And if you do return, there are rules, penalties, public apologies, quiet punishments that last longer than bruises. No one says they resent you. They don't have to. You feel it in how they look past you at the well, how your chores shift subtly toward the worst ones, how your mother folds your clothes with less care, how your father only nods instead of speaking. That's how the system holds you. Not with locks, not with bars, with shame, with memory, with the weight of what it means to stay. Every once in a while you meet someone who tried, who almost made it. You can tell by their eyes. They don't look at the road anymore. They don't dream out loud. They keep their heads down. Their silence is not peaceful. It's protective. You envy them and fear them, because they remind you the dream is real, and that it hurts. Some escape in other ways. The girl who married early to a man twice her age so she could move 2 valleys over. The boy who joined the monks to avoid conscription. The widow who volunteered for plague duty just to be transferred somewhere else. But none of them are free, just relocated. You once thought about digging a tunnel, as a child. You dug for a week before hitting rock, gave up, buried the hole, forgot about it. Until one night, you dreamed you climbed inside and kept going, down, sideways, upward again, until you emerged in a field you didn't recognize, and the wind didn't smell like rice or wood smoke or dust. You woke before you reached the edge of the field, and the dream never returned. Escape, you realize, is a shape without a door, a sound without an echo, a word you stop saying even inside your own mind, because it's easier to pretend the road isn't there, because it's easier to believe that staying is the same as choosing. You wake at dawn again. The light through the window is soft, the same light you've known your whole life. It rests on the edge of your mat like a hand reminding you where you belong. You rise, you wash, you walk to the field. You don't look at the road, not today, not anymore. You think the hardest part of life here is hunger, or punishment, or silence. And then you have a child. That's when you learn the worst truth of all. Your children don't belong to you. You carry them. You feed them. You rock them through fevers. You tell them stories that have no endings because you make them up each time. But from the moment they draw breath, they are not fully yours. Invisible hands begin to take hold. The village, the ancestors, the state, the clan, every one of them has a claim, and none of them ask your permission. It starts before your child even cries. The midwife asks what time it is. She marks it down with brush and scrap paper, aligning the baby's first breath with heavenly stems and earthly branches. She loops a thin strand of hemp around the wrist, 1 loop for a boy, 2 for a girl, and tells you the date will be copied into a proper ledger soon. No one asks you what you want to name them. That is not your job. Elders gather to choose a syllable from an old poem written long before you were born. If it's a boy, the name follows the family generation code. If it's a girl, the name is simple, often ending with a soft syllable that sounds polite when spoken to strangers. Something like soon or he. You bow when the name is announced. You smile. You nod. But at night you whisper your own name for the baby, a name made from how their breath sounds in sleep, or how their fist curls around your thumb. But you never say that name out loud again. You don't want it taken too. For a little while it feels like the child is yours after all. They cry for you. They lean into you. Their eyes follow your voice. When they get a fever, you sit beside their mat and hold a damp cloth to their brow, whispering prayers that don't follow any particular scripture. You hold them until your arms go numb. You stay awake long after they stop crying, just to be sure they're still breathing. Then time begins to move. A boy is sent to the village teacher before he's strong enough to carry a full water bucket. He sits on a dirt floor for hours, repeating characters he doesn't understand. He's hit for every mistake. You pay the tutor in sacks of millet that your family needed for winter. A girl is taught to sit quietly. She learns how to pour tea without a ripple, how to smile without showing teeth, how to say thank you without sounding too eager. You watch as your child becomes someone else, someone smaller, someone less like you. The grandfather decides when a child can help with the fields. He measures their height, checks the strength of their wrists. If they're good with numbers, they'll carry grain tallies to the village clerk. If they're clumsy, they're handed a broom and told to keep the floor clear of dust. You stand beside, trying not to show pride or worry. The grandfather speaks, and you nod, even when you disagree. Especially when you disagree. Every 3 years the state counts households, roofs, animals, children. They mark your child's name in red ink once they're old enough to work. If the child dies, the ink remains. You still owe grain. You still owe labour. Sometimes a son lives only 7 summers, but you pay as if he lived 10. The debt of existence outlasts the body. You don't question it. When your daughter reaches 12, marriage talk begins. There's no ceremony for it. Just quiet visits. Neighbours stop by with questions about her embroidery, her posture, her skill with the stew pot. Men you barely know mention her name with casual interest. Your wife begins saving coins in a small pouch under her pillow, even though you both know it won't be enough. At night your daughter asks what the capital looks like. She asks if other villages also have roosters that scream before dawn. She wonders if birds ever get tired of flying. You answer in short phrases, changing the subject when your throat gets tight. You don't tell her what happens when a girl goes to a new house, how quickly she disappears from her mother's home, how quickly the silence fills the space she once held. Your son turns 15. A messenger arrives on horseback, his breath fogging in the cold. He delivers a paper with the seal of the magistrate. Your son has been chosen to carry rice to the regional storehouse. It is only 2 days away, but it might as well be across the sea. You pack dried radish and stale barley cakes into a cloth sack. You tell him to keep his head down, to speak only when spoken to. Your neighbour's boy went once, and he came back with a limp and a new scar along his jaw. You don't tell your son that part. You watch him walk away at dawn. Your hands clench without meaning to. When he returns, he smells like river water and sweat. His eyes are harder. He doesn't talk as much. He sits differently. You feel like you've missed a year in just 3 days. Later conscription comes. There's a drawing. Stones pulled from a pot. White means you go north. Black means you stay. You don't know if you should pray for him to stay or go. Either one feels like losing something you cannot name. You cut his hair short, sew an extra lining into his boots, kiss his forehead like you did when he was small. He tries not to cry. You fail. If your son stays, it's another father who walks that path, and somehow that feels worse. Your daughter's wedding is arranged while you're still paying off a tax from 3 seasons ago. Her betrothed arrives with gifts: cloth, fermented soy paste, a duck. His aunt does all the talking. Your daughter bows at every sentence. You smile, you nod. But something inside your chest shifts in a way that feels permanent. The night before she leaves, she brushes your hair. She says she wants to remember it. You braid hers for the last time. It takes longer than usual. You tell yourself it's the hair. When she walks away in her red robes, you don't follow. You watch until the procession turns past the ridge. Then you sit. Then you stand. then you do the same chores as always. Because grief here doesn't get a name either. Sometimes children get sick. Fevers come with the wet season. You boil herbs. You chant to spirits. You offer rice to ancestors who never speak back. If the child recovers, the neighbours nod. If they die, someone always suggests your family must have offended the divine. Too much noise, not enough incense. Maybe the father missed a seasonal rite. You bury the child on a hillside, small stones. No nameplate yet. You'll carve it later. You remember every shape of their face, every mispronounced word, every time they fell asleep on your lap without asking. You don't cry where others can see, but you never stop hearing their voice. Your son returns from military service. He is taller. His shoulders are wrong, like they don't quite belong to him. He doesn't speak of what he saw. He sharpens tools, mends walls, sits with his back to the door. When you offer advice, he nods, but his eyes are far away. He'll marry soon. You'll welcome another daughter-in-law who learns quickly how little space she's allowed to take up. Your daughter visits once a season. She brings pickles in small jars. She bows at the threshold. She does not stay long. Her child clings to her leg. He calls you old man instead of grandfather. You smile anyway. At night you imagine asking her to come home, just for a little while. But the house she belongs to now is not yours. It never was. You grow older. You forget things. You drop spoons. Your hands shake when you pour tea. Your son pays taxes for you now. He signs your name with fewer flourishes. You pretend not to notice. The children you raised now speak in tones you barely recognize. They nod at you, but the weight of their lives no longer rests in your hands. You want to tell them everything. You want to pass down the stories no one ever asked you to keep. But the silence feels safer, and they are busy. You lie down at night and stare at the ceiling. You remember the first time you saw your son's face, the way his mouth curled when he dreamed. You remember your daughter chasing butterflies near the stream before she was told girls shouldn't run. You remember what it felt like to carry them and to lose them, both at the same time, because they were never yours. Not really. And now at the end you understand. You weren't raising children. You were loaning them to the world. You already know how this ends. You knew it when you saw the old man leaning against the ox cart last autumn, coughing into a cloth he kept hidden in his sleeve. You knew it when the midwife stopped showing up at the rice fields and no one asked why out loud. You even knew it when the neighbour's mother started giving away her belongings. One bowl here, one comb there. That's what people do when they know there's not much time left. Death is not surprising here. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with final words or long goodbyes. It just settles in quietly, like morning fog. You feel it before you see it. And when it's your turn, you already know the rules. There is no doctor, no hospital, no urgent whisper for herbs or roots. Maybe someone boils water. Maybe someone stays up through the night, but no one expects miracles, not anymore. Your body starts giving you signs, not pain exactly, just a slowing. You walk less, your hands tremble more, your breath feels shallow as if the air has grown thicker. You eat smaller portions, you stop wanting to eat at all. You don't speak of it, because here, when people speak of death, it invites it faster. The body may be tired, but the mouth stays quiet. You used to fear dying. Now you fear what comes after more. You think of the funeral rites, the ones you've helped with since you were young enough to carry a bundle of straw. You remember the chanting, the bowls of water, the incense sticks that never quite stayed upright in the dish. You remember the mourners whispering about who cried too much and who didn't cry at all. There's a script for everything, even for grief. When you die, your family will follow that script. They'll wear hemp clothes, they'll avoid meat and colour, they'll bow and sob, whether they mean it or not. Your sons will carry your body out of the house, feet first. Your daughters will wail behind the curtain, unseen. That is how it's done. Not because it means something, but because it's always been done that way. You wonder what happens if they forget a step. What if the candles burn too short? What if the offering bowl cracks? Does your spirit drift? Does your soul get lost? No one knows, but no one wants to find out either. You remember what they did for your father. He was buried on a slope just east of the village, near a tree that bent slightly in the wind as if bowing forever. The grave had no stone, just a mound of earth and a stack of worn wood pieces tied with straw. They placed food at his grave on the first few holidays. Then they forgot. Or maybe they just got too busy. When you pass, maybe you'll get a better sight. Maybe not. You won't be able to complain either way. In your final days, you say less and sleep more. You listen more closely to the sound of water outside. You think about your mother's hands, about the first time you saw your child walk, about the morning frost after the first harvest. The little things stay, the big ones fade. Sometimes people say they see old relatives before they die. You haven't seen anyone. You wonder if that means they aren't waiting. You try to believe otherwise. Your children come in and out of your room. They whisper. They argue quietly over the best time to call the village cleric. Your youngest daughter touches your forehead and says it's still warm. That makes her feel better. It makes you feel tired. You don't know what time it is when your breath finally catches. You just know it doesn't come back. There's no struggle, no last gasp. Just the long, slow fading of a candle no one knew was near the end of the wick. When they realise someone says your name, someone else closes your eyes. They cover you with a mat and hang paper on the door to mark death's visit. From this point on, you are no longer you. You are a body to be handled, a name to be written in charcoal on a wooden tablet, a series of steps to be followed. Your family begins the rites. They wash your body in silence, dress you in clean, plain clothes, lay you out straight, arms at your sides. They surround your head with herbs, light incense, and place coins in your sleeve. You won't need them, but still they're placed, because that's what was done for the last one. Your eldest son kneels the longest. He doesn't speak. You wonder if he remembers the story you once told him about the fish who turned into a dragon. You doubt it. Your daughter-in-law prepares the mourning garments. She cuts fabric into crude sashes. No dye, no hem. The more frayed, the better. It shows grief. People begin to arrive. Some bring rice, some bring eggs. Some bring only the proper words. They bow 3 times. They press their hands together. They say your name carefully, like it might still hear. You are present, but not. You listen, but no longer remember why. At night they keep watch. A single candle, a bowl of water, a child fanning away flies. The oldest brother snores softly in the corner, but no one wakes him. When morning comes, they seal your coffin. It's not grand, just planks nailed tight, wrapped with cord, marked with a symbol for safe travel. They load it onto a cart drawn by oxen too old for regular field work. The procession walks slow. You've walked in these before, never from this angle. They pass the village gate. Children watch from behind their mother's skirts. The wind doesn't blow. Your grave was dug before sunrise. It's shallow. The soil is dry. The shovel hits rock. No one speaks. Your body is lowered. The lid is closed. The earth is replaced. There is no headstone, not today. That will come later. Maybe. Your name is added to the family shrine. The tablet carved, the ink dries crooked, it doesn't matter. You're not remembered for who you were. You are remembered for when. Spring, 3rd year of the current reign. Born in the 8th year of the last one. Son of one man, parent of another, husband to a woman whose name they spell wrong. Your life is recorded in lines no one will read. And then it's done. The family returns home, they eat the rice, they sweep the floor, they fold the clothes you'll never wear again. Your youngest child stands outside, stares up at the sky. They ask no questions, they've seen this before. The next morning the village clerk scratches your name from the ledger. A small dry sound. That's how you leave. When you're alive, your name matters. It's spoken every morning during rites, it's inked in ledgers. It's called out at the wet market. It's on the edge of a wooden tablet folded into the family shrine. It's a signal to ancestors and a connection to the land you ploughed. After you die, it starts to blur. You think it'll remain sharp, that it still holds you in memory, connecting past and future. But the truth is slower and quieter. Names fade, people turn the page. Soon after you're gone, there's a mispronunciation. During the year-end ritual, someone reads the list aloud. Your name comes up in the middle, tucked between a farmer and an artisan. It's your turn to receive an offering. The reader stumbles, adds a syllable, or skips an honorific. No one corrects him. The pause, the small shift feels like the first crack. You're still there technically, but not completely. Days pass. A neighbour from your childhood, one who used to wave at you by the well, passes by the shrine. He stops briefly, sees your tablet, hesitates. He glances upward at a cloth banner floating in the breeze. His shoulders stiffen, and he moves on. No incense offered, no memory stirred. That's the second shift. Weeks go by. Someone donates your old trousers to a charity basket. You wore those pants almost every day. They were patched, faded, your comfort clothes. Someone else wears them now. No one knows they belong to you. There's no shame. No shame at all. That's the third erasure. Then the disappointment. Your granddaughter stops asking your name and starts calling someone else Grandpa. She giggles about his jokes, his beard, the way he winked. You wonder if she knew anything about you at all. She might have thought you were another old man with the same title, another name pasted above a bowl of rice. That's the fourth. There's a reckoning inside you, so small you barely feel it, and then it stretches, like a ripple expanding outward. Who are you, if not the name carved in wood? Your tablet leans, the sun-dried cord that hangs it loosens. Each spring thaw brings new moisture. 1 year the tablet warps, the ink smears, your name becomes a ghost. Someone glues it back, botches the job. Now it tilts with the breeze. You're still there, but slightly askew. Then comes the ledger clear. The village clerk redraws boundaries, lists genealogies. You remain in official records for 1 more generation. Then your line becomes obscure. Someone draws a faint line next to your entry. No reason given. A quiet, bureaucratic gesture. Later, a neighbour in a new house wonders why there's a blank tablet beside the shrine. They ask your eldest grandson. He shrugs. The shrine feels colder after that. You used to matter. Once. Your wife would stop in the doorway at dusk and call your name. Your son still calls out your name sometimes, but only in his dreams. Today, when he pauses during dinner, his fork halfway to his mouth, you imagine he's thinking of you, but he's not. He's thinking of the tomorrow he'll remind himself to make harvest count, or of another child he needs to prepare for marriage. You're not in dinner conversations, you're in memory, a tenuous fragment. A few years pass, your tablet splits down the centre. It happens when the winter rain freezes. Nobody glues it back this time. Not worth it. Instead, they place it face down under the shrine shelf. Dust gathers. Small spiders spin webs. A lizard shelters beneath. The wood warps. It becomes just another scrap of aged wood. You're still there, but upside down. Silent. One child loses interest during ancestor rites. An angel-voiced child where your grandson is too busy playing with sticks. No one notices your missing tablet. No one says, "Where's Grandpa?" When your daughter-in-law bows, she hesitates. Something's off, but they move on. That's the end. You think that's when your name disappears, but not quite yet. A cousin rebuilds the shrine. New tiles, fresh paint, brighter banners, bathed in sunlight and respect. They bring in new tablets, great ancestors with official seals. Some never even met the village. They place them front and centre. Your tablet doesn't fit the aesthetic anymore. You're moved to the side. You're placed behind bigger names. You're lowered. When the shrine is tidy, someone kneels before the ancestors and doesn't see you. That's when the altar gutters the light in half. Another season passes. Someone opens the shrine for spring cleaning. A new robe scratches made on your tablet. It lifts paint and ink. Someone curses softly. They place a strip of cloth over you, just enough to hide your face. No ceremony and no apology, just that cloth. Then the rain comes in. A leak forms above your section. Water drips, black mold blossoms. The wood is ruined. The clerk says it's beyond repair. Your tablet is removed. It's not thrown away. That would be disrespectful. It's folded into straw and stored in the old tool shed, near broken carts and broken hope. A quiet place no one visits. If you exist now, it is there. In that tool shed with dust, mould and silence. They say ancestral spirits watch over their descendants. You wonder what happens when there is no name to call. Do you disappear? Are you angry, or do you float, unrecognized, grieving? A few weeks later, your family performs ritual without you. They bow to a blank place. They pray to the missing. They ask the ancestors to protect the house. Bless the crops, keep peace. You're omitted but still implied. Better to exist unseen than completely vanish. A final shift. Your own wife, the one who lit candles for your birthday and tucked rice under your pillow, dies decades later. She's taken to the new shrine. Chairs are shuffled. Tablets without names stare at each other. She kneels beside new relatives. Men now distant, women now unfamiliar. Time doesn't leave room for empty spaces. Someone suggests merging the shrines. Hundreds of tablets in one box. Names get mixed. You and your wife read similar brushstrokes. That suggests that your names remain, but no one speaks them individually anymore. Then the altars are dismantled. The house is empty. The land is sold. The new owners fill the rooms with new names, new meals, new hopes. A boy runs in the hallways chasing dragonflies. He stumbles in the corner where your bedroom was. He cuts his hand. The healer stitches the wound. No one remembers you. There's no rush to forget you. It simply happens, like dusk swallowing daylight, like water wearing stone, like a bruise fading over time. Still there are people who carry glimmers. Your daughter-in-law keeps one old photograph tucked behind glass. Her eyes fill when she looks at your face. She calls your name once in a while, quietly, as if testing if it still replies. Your grandson once wrote a poem about a father he never met. He begins, There was a man who walked these fields. He never finishes. These are the last echoes. They're weak, but they're echoes. The rest of the world proceeds. Fields are replanted, taxes are paid. Children are named new names. The shrine stones are smoothed by time. The incense smell shifts with each new burner. Your name, once bold ink on fresh wood, becomes silent pewter dust at the back of memory. Time moves on. Your name becomes a wound no living person feels. It becomes an echo in an empty hall. It becomes grass rustling over a buried dream. You're still there somewhere, in the sound of wind in the trees, but for most of the world, and you're not. Death, once final, became just the beginning of another erasure. First, your breath stopped. That was private, quiet. A child closing their eyes beside your bed. Then your name faded from ritual. The incense was skipped. The tablet remained unlit. Those were intentional omissions, tiny blanks in a ceremony meant to remember everything. Now comes the final stage, absolute forgetting. When you lived, your name filled rooms. People pronounced it at dawn, at meals, at festivals. It was part of a rhythm, bowed respect, shared sweat, chores done in your voice. But time moves, and generations peel away, untethered from who you were. Your family home went empty years ago. It was sold after the last of your children moved away. The fields lay fallow, weeds claimed the mud paths, snakes nested in the courtyard well where you once swept straw at sunrise. They say a storm found that old house and tore off its roof. Moss smothered the beams, the gates sagged. The land became a patch of grass and memory. They rebuilt somewhere else. A new generation lives there now. They pray in a hut that stands where your shrine once did, but it's dedicated to different ancestors. Even the direction is slightly shifted east. The incense smoke follows a new wind. No one knows that under one tile buried deep once lay your small mound of earth. No one knows the terrace paddy had a stone you placed there when your son was born. No one knows the carved steps you and your wife chiseled together, marking seasons by hand. The ledger that once listed your name hangs in a museum somewhere. The paper is yellowed, brittle. Someone from the capital read past your name. Lee and Son, farmer, 2 sons, but moved on. The rest of your page faded so completely it's blank now. Sometimes people visit old houses in anthologies of rural architecture. They take photos. They ask questions. The current residents show them stones with faded glyphs. An old marker, they say. We don't know what it is. They laugh at it, call it a romantic mystery, not realizing they're mocking your memory. In history books, you're not there. No statue, no poem, no place in a chapter called The People. You're an absence, a comma after a list, a footnote never actually written. There's a story of a child who walked your land. Great-great-grandchild, they say. The child asked her mother, "Grandma, who is that man standing by the paddy?" Her mother shrugged. "An ancestor, I think. We don't know much more." The child nodded and carried water to the field. That was the closest the family came to speaking your name in a century. Occasionally, winter rains wash away the cracked paint of your tablet's image on the hut wall. Someone repaints the lines. They don't know whose face it is. The lines resemble many people. Not yours, not theirs. Someone long ago drew a placeholder. It endures because no one cares enough to change it. One spring, metal detectors sweep the field looking for rare objects. They find an old arrowhead and a button from an overcoat. The locals whisper about possible Bronze Age graves. They document it happily. call it our heritage, and move on. If the button belongs to you, no one knows, no one asks. There is no record of impacts, no ripples, no echo, just blank land where you once existed. This is what happens to ordinary lives, they dissolve. You once believed that your efforts mattered, the rain you prayed for at the harvest rite, the words you chanted over the newborn, the years of the toil in the fields, the children you raised, the sweat you spilled at dawn. All of that, was it for anything? But perhaps you underestimated how memories survive. Not in names or stones, not in ledgers or maps. It survives in gestures and patterns, in the way the new family still pauses when the paddy wind shifts, in that child's question about the man by the field, in the slightly slanted steps carved decades ago, in the beat of chores that echo old routines. It's not you they remember, but it's part of you that slips between their ribs and becomes breath. And breath is alive. People say memory is fragile, but habits, rituals, echoes that persists. A seamstress in the next village still stitches tiny X's into corners of cloth. She doesn't know why. She's never heard of you, but somehow she learned it from your granddaughter's neighbour's daughter. It still lives. Your forgotten name becomes a hum in the background. Music without words. You're not present, but you're not gone entirely. There's a poet who captures village life in verses. Muddy feet, young wives, night markets full of lantern glow. He publishes a poem about the village that reads like an elegy, has no names. But when you read it later, much later, you feel the pulse of your own heartbeat within the lines. It unsettles you and you read it again. That poem is timeless and nameless. In the end, that's what survives. Not your name, but your world and the rhythm of it. Silence holds more intention than speech. But this is the end of silence, because the silence of forgetting is just as loud. And you realise it wasn't the name that mattered. It was the life. That life vibrates, like strings of a zither touched long ago. The notes are faint, but the sound waves still travel. Your name finally disappears. But your story, the story of labour and loss, humility and duty, still echoes in those who live. Not as you, but as part of who they are. This is how no one remembers you, but also how something of you survives.